Hey everybody, welcome to week number 2. We're going to get started by taking a look at the course, doing a little walkthrough, and then talking a little bit about what you're reading and what you're doing this week and get you into the good stuff. All right, so on the homepage, of course, we have a link to the course calendar. So I always like to start with that just because it kind of helps us stay oriented as far as where we are. Not so hard in week 2, but once we get kind of in the middle, it's always good to sort of take a look at that. In module 1, of course, which was last week and this week, we're focusing on just getting started. So learning Canvas, learning the course. You're looking into sociological criticism this week in more depth. Last week, we read about lots of different types of literary criticism, and you took your literary criticism quiz and did your discussion board. This week, you have your first official paper. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and how to accomplish it, all that good stuff. Sociological criticism is a perfect one to pair with the intersections between political science and literature, and of course, being paired with Mr. Norton's class in American government. This is kind of the sweet spot between the two. So that's one reason I like to focus on sociological criticism with you guys specifically. I also really enjoy it because it allows me to get outside of just literature and focus on some social issues as well. So that's where we are. You've got one assignment this week, and you've been doing a good job so far. I think almost everybody has turned in everything from last week. If you have not, of course, make sure that you do that by the end of Sunday. And then, of course, our week 2 begins on Monday. So let's go to the module and take a look at the learning materials. We've already gone over the overview and objectives. Nothing new this week there. And really we're going back into the same learning materials as well, but it really spans 2 weeks. So in the learning materials, you have, of course, the background on how to use Canvas. Most of you have kind of already gone through that. You have a full-scale MLA format and documentation review. And that, of course, helped you with some of the stuff that you did last week, but it is mostly to get you ready to write this particular paper. And I wanted to go over some of these special considerations when writing about literature, and also kind of where to find all this good information. One of the things you may want to do, and we're going to click on that link from to the library citation center. If you have not done so, I would bookmark this page. This is where, especially if you do not have your Little Seagull handbook anymore, or you have a much older version than the one that is current, this is the small form of basically that whole MLA section that was in your Little Seagull handbook. And it's got a lot of wonderful things that you can use, including a citation guide, which is going to show you how to create those works cited entries. This is the one I wanted to really point out to you this week, though. The MLA sample paper is a Word document, or a Word-friendly document. You can use that as a template to create your first paper. So there's no reason to lose points in terms of the formatting. Now, documentation, of course, takes a little bit more skill, because you not only want to have the works cited entries correct, but you're also going to need to have the in-text citations correct. Now, I'm going to click on this, but it won't be visible yet because I haven't shared that screen, but we're going to come back to that when we talk about the assignment. So while we're on it, I'm going to open the template and we'll reshare when we get to that point. So that is the link that you can find right in the module. You also have some MLA basics. This is going to give you some information. Special considerations when writing about literature. One of the things that people struggle with is, how do I write about this particular kind of thing? All the choices for the first sociological paper are short stories, so fiction. but these rules kind of apply throughout. So things like don't write in first person. You never have to say, I think, I feel, I see, I believe, I read. We know it's your paper. So you just make your statements and then you prove them. I've got some sample thesis statements here for you because thesis statements are notoriously hard to write. So this will give you some examples of what you can do in a thesis statement in a literary paper. In terms of research, you have to include both the works cited page and in-text parenthetical citation. Whether you're quoting or paraphrasing or summarizing, you have to have those in-text citations. What goes inside the in-text citations are dependent on what's on the works cited page. So always do that works cited page first. Have those done, have them ready, because you're going to need them when you go to use to create your in-text citations. When you're writing about literature, it is really important to quote from whatever it is. The actual literature itself, you should use a lot of direct quotations, not necessarily super long quotations, but definitely quotations. And basically every time you make a point, you want to quote the literature to back that up, to show what you're talking about. Now, you're also going to be using research, secondary sources. So that is what anybody has written about your story that you're writing about. So you can look for books in the library catalog by searching the author's name and literary criticism as a subject search, and I'll show you this a little bit more. Look for published journal articles by using the library databases. And of course, there's a lot of databases to choose from. Most of you have been introduced to those in your ENC 1101 classes. Some of you have had 1102. So you've probably looked at specifically the literature resources as well. The three best to choose for literature are Literature Reference Center, Artemis, which I think has changed names. We'll look at that in a minute. And then JSTOR for older things. Keep your use of the internet to a very minimum. You really don't want your actual secondary sources to come from the internet as a whole. So use the library. Now, you may have to have reference type sources or what we call tertiary sources, especially as we're talking about sociology and history and politics. You still want to use good sources though. So there are reference sources that are available in the library for free, just like Googling something. You definitely want to keep away from Wikipedia as a source in a research paper. Not that it's not helpful to get you kind of thinking about things, but definitely use real sources in your actual paper. Documentation, you want to use something that's up to date. The library page is absolutely fine. The citation center is absolutely fine. But if you have taken ENC 1101 fairly recently, your Little Seagull Handbook would also work as a reference source for that, what kind of goes there and that sort of stuff. What goes inside your in-text citations matches what comes first. I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me, in the works cited entry, which is why you always want to do your works cited page before you start writing the essay. I know it feels weird because it goes at the end, but it really will help you a lot. Titles still get their quotations or italics. And of course, I copied and pasted, and now my Wizard of Oz, which should be in italics, is not. But there's a reason why that one is used. If you have page numbers available, then you'll use them. If it's a poem, you use line numbers, and in some plays, you would have acts and scenes. We'll be dealing with a Shakespeare play later on. But in our particular case, we're focusing on just short stories, and most of them are electronically published to where you don't have page numbers. So it would just be the author's last name. And so then we have some information about including multiple sentences from the same source. I like to call it a mention citation sandwich because when you cite something, it really only follows, it's just for that sentence or that quote. So if you have 3, 4, 5 sentences in a row, if you have a whole paragraph that you have paraphrased from a source, you need to show that every sentence in that is from the source. So this will help you kind of navigate that a little bit. All right. So let's go back then to the module. This, of course, is a good resource to look at, as well as the critical thinking and close reading. We have, of course, the links about different kinds of literary research and criticism. Of course, you can use all of those again. So what are we writing about? Well, sociology, politics, and literature. So the assignment for the paper is it is a research paper. It is not a terribly long research paper necessarily. I have only required that the essay be 4 pages for a research paper. That's not terribly long. And especially when you're writing about a short story and you're using a lot of quotations from the story, it will help you. There's plenty of things to fill your pages there. In terms of secondary research, you should use the library, and I'll show you how to find some sources. If you have trouble finding sources, you can always reach out to me, but the librarians are better at it than I am. So if you need some extra help finding resources, make sure you reach out to the library itself, and I'll show you where to do that when we go into the library's page. Okay, so you have a ton of different short stories that you can choose from. In fact, some of the authors, Kate Chopin is one, Nathaniel Hawthorne is one, and Flannery O'Connor is one. We have multiple stories in the LibGuides by them. So you can choose any of their stories. Some of you will be familiar with some of these. Many of you will have read A Rose for Emily before. Many of you will have read, you may have read the Bartleby the Scrivener, The Mask of the Red Death. You may have read other stories by Poe. So there are a lot of different stories that you can choose from. Many are by American writers, but not all. So take a look around. You don't have to make quick decisions about which one, but that will definitely give you some freedom there. In order to find the paper, all you have to do is click on this link, and they will all be here in the short fiction section. So if I click on short fiction, you will notice that they are then organized by author's last name. Sherman Alexie's This Is What It Means to Save Phoenix, Arizona is one of the potential ones. So if I were to write about that, all I have to do is click on the story's title. It will take me to a version of the story. Now, of course, this is going to be hard to read. You can move it. I would probably print it out if I was going to write about this story so that I could take notes on it, but you don't have to. You can certainly read it electronically, but that's where you will find the stories. Oh, I also should show you that while you're in there, most of them also have links to author biographies. Now, you don't want to use tons from the author's biography, but sometimes it's kind of nice to have a little bit of that in the introduction. But the big thing I want to show you is that many of the sources that you might find by your own searches have already been found for you. So if you click on the little tabs that say critical analysis, we've got 3 articles here that you could potentially use. Now, let's click on one of these. Whether I find it myself or whether I look at it here, this is the library citation stuff. So it's got a citation button up here. It's different on different databases, but there will always be one. And I don't have to work at it. I already have a lovely MLA 9th edition completely up-to-date citation. Now, I do want to show you a trick. So I'm going to copy that. And now I'm going to go ahead and open that Word document. Let me share that as well. Okay, now we should be sharing both of them. All right, so let's go to the Word document. And this, like I said, is a template. So you can type over everything. they have also done a really cool job because this document itself also is about writing paper. So read it. Don't just type over it, but read it. It's very, very helpful. The other nice thing about it is that it already has that weird hanging indent setup that we have to do on a works cited page. So if I want to add that citation that I just found, I'm going to highlight the first one here, and I'm going to do what's called match formatting. Notice I still have my hanging indent. I still have italics. Everything is as it should be. Okay. So use that. Now, when I cite this in the document itself, I don't have an author. So I'm going to use the title, and it's got quotation marks around it. I also do not have to use that whole thing. So if I'm citing a quote from this article or a paraphrase from this article, my parenthetical citation is going to look like this. This is what. That's all I really have to include. And it's going to be clear that that's what's there. I don't have exact page numbers, but if I did, and I might actually, let's look back at it. Do I have exact page numbers? No. Well, yeah, I do, because it shows where here's page 208, here's page 209. So when I'm citing this, I can actually include the page number as well. So what that's going to look like in my in-text citation, by the way, this would never be in this location. I just am using this because it's right here handy. Let's say it was from page 209. That's what it's going to look like. Okay. Now the story is also cited for you. Let's see. Let's go back to the story. The librarians have done a really fabulous job with this stuff. The story itself, you notice right below here, has a cite thing. That's a very bad word to use for that, but let's put that. Let's click and copy that. And it's going to be above this. But I'm going to put it below it for right now, simply because I want to use this as it already is. Remember to use match formatting, and it's going to keep it the same. So then when I am citing from this, I'm going to have Alexi in my parenthetical citation because I have an author. All right. Now, order. This is out of order. I'm going to just erase the rest of these because I'm going to just have these two things on here for right now. All right. So these are not in the right order because this comes after Alexi. Now, you can sort them. If you only have two things, then honestly, I would probably just take this and I would move it above it, and I wouldn't mess with it. But you can use this A to Z button to sort. If you are sorting things, you have to take the parenthetical or the little quotation marks off. Otherwise, it will not sort properly. But when you're done sorting, you can put it back on. Everybody's happy. Ta-da. All right. So main thing, as you're working on this paper this week, if you need help, reach out. Reach out to me, reach out to the librarians. In the library, let's go to the Lake Sumter Library home. Oh, they've changed it. That's right. Let's do /library. When you come into the libraries page, you have various places here. If you need help finding resources, you want to click on the library. If you want help with your actual paper, you can also click on the Writing Center. That will connect you with a tutor. But I'm going to go to the libraries, and you'll notice that on this page, there is a wonderful button called Ask a Librarian. There's also this button over here called Ask Us. Chat is offline right now because it's Saturday when I'm taping this. But if this is during normal hours, you would be able to ask somebody immediately. This will allow you, yeah, this one is also to chat, but you can reach out by email to librarians, and we have an embedded librarian in our course. His name is Kevin Arms. So if you click on people, because he has an A last name, he actually comes up at the very top. If you have questions for Kevin, you can reach out to him directly, and it'll take you, you can send him through the inbox. It gives you all his information here, but you can inbox him because he is part of our course. All right. So good luck this week. Enjoy reading the short stories and enjoy exploring some of the social issues that you find there. It can be anything. It can be politics, it can be gender, it can be marriage roles, it can be family dynamics, it can be any of those kinds of sociological issues. I want you to explore and I want you to have fun with it. If you have questions, please, please, please reach out. And I will see you next week if I do not talk to you in the meantime. Everybody take care.